Hi everyone. Sorry, I kind of messed up there. I was talking and I thought I had started the video, but I hadn't. So this is the Grand Duke Dmitri YouTube video series. We're doing some of his diary entries from 1940 now. I uploaded a video yesterday on Dmitri, but unfortunately, I think rather stupidly, I also uploaded a video on my thoughts on the brothers Karamazov. And the Karamazov video got twice as many views as the Dmitri video, and that's not usually the case when I do something on literature. And it was kind of an impromptu thing, but I think maybe it sort of made the Dmitri video disappear. So the name of that video was "The Whole World is Watching," a reference to Finland. So if you can find that, I still desperately need to do a playlist. I really need to do that. I haven't done that yet. Anyway, I am not going to do that again where I upload a literature video and a Dmitri video on the same day, because as delighted as I am when the literature videos get some views, that's, more or less of a sideline, and Dmitri is the main event. All right, so our recap. In yesterday's video, we did the 9th, 10th, and 11th of February. Dmitri was doing well. He was out and about. He was socializing. He had, well, not on a large scale, but he had some close friends in Davos, Reggie and Giselle Porbrick. And so he was visiting with them, and Giselle was living in a hotel, even though she had tuberculosis, a hotel right beneath Shots Out. So it was really easy for Dmitri to go and visit her, and for her and Reggie to come up and visit him. And yeah, he was talking about Finland, which was the main event at that time, what was going on in the war, although it was separate. It was the Winter War. And he says on the 10th that the Finns are holding on, that the whole world is watching this conflict, and that the Allies are not helping much. And so I finally, got my act together and went and looked at a timeline for the Winter War. And apparently, what he's referring to is on the 5th of February, there had been an agreement made between Britain and France that they were going to offer some aid to the Finns, not with troops, but logistics and other things. But apparently that had, for whatever reason, really not come together and not really worked out. Dmitri's suspicion is that they were afraid of offending Moscow, because the Allies very much wanted to detach Moscow from Nazi Germany and to have Moscow, to have the Soviet Union as their own ally. And so, he could well be right about that. I don't know. All right, so let's. I will also say that. So we ended with his diary entry of the 11th February, and he clearly had not yet gotten the news. Back in 1940, you didn't get news instantly. And what was going on, apparently at that time, was that the Soviet Union was shelling Finland really starkly, and that they actually broke through the Mannerheim line. And so that was, a big success for the Soviets in Finland, unfortunately. But as I say, Dmitri hadn't gotten the news yet. Okay, so let's get going. We'll start with the 12th of February, 1940, which was a Sunday. Letter to Doris Chapman, Polly, postcard number 4. Also received a letter from him dated 16th January. It's terrible how long it took. The weather is overcast with heavy snowfall. Naturally, I did not lie out on the balcony. No news from Finland, no catastrophe, thank God. The Finns are still holding on. Nausea completely gone for the time being. So I still don't think he's gotten the news about Finland, because it was a catastrophe. So either he hadn't gotten the news, or the news he got was not accurate. All right, moving on to the 13th of February, 1940, Monday. Letters to Boris, Charlie, blank, a person whose name I couldn't make out, and Harry Streatfield. Whites. He then just puts, referring to the gentleman's club in London, Whites. It has suddenly gotten terribly cold again, 22 degrees since morning. Lunched with Pourbrick and Giselle in Davos. At 3 p.m. returned home and went to bed. Still blank, the books sent to me from America by Maria. I was not weighed in the morning. The nurse forgot, but I have probably lost weight due to the poisoning of last week. Okay, I'm going to stop and talk about the 12th and 13th before we go any further, because it's easy to get these different days mixed up. So Doris Chapman, I don't know who she was. Dmitri and Polly were, as you can see, in regular correspondence. So that's great. Yeah, we talked about Finland. He talks about nausea, his nausea being gone. He hadn't mentioned nausea before, but he certainly would throughout the Shots Out Diaries to come. But anyway, gone for the time being, he says. Okay, and then moving to the 13th. Boris was Grand Duke Boris Vladimirovich. So Boris is the English pronunciation, and yeah, he was somewhere, I think, in the south of France or in Paris. He, like Dmitri, the clock was ticking. He would die in 1943, so he would outlive Dmitri. Dmitri doesn't say what they were talking about. Charlie, I don't know who Charlie was. You know, good luck trying to figure out who a random Charlie is. I know that Dmitri had a friend named Charlie Brighton, who was actually a female Charlie. And she was a woman from an aristocratic background, but she was kind of, she was a bit on the wild side. And if this is indeed that Charlie, then she and Dmitri kind of had a mad fling back in 1921, and he said that they were perfectly sexually compatible, which he never said about any other woman, but I don't know if this is that Charlie. Harry Streatfield, again, I'm drawing a blank. I'm sure Dmitri spelled that completely wrong. He used Latin letters. He put, for the surname, Streatfield. So if any of you know who Doris Chapman or Harry Streatfield, however his name is spelled, who they are, please let me know. He's just writing letter after letter, and Dmitri did not like writing letters, as people would complain about over the course of his whole life. But you know, what else is he going to do? He's alone, he's feeling out of touch, he's spending a lot of time in bed, so it makes sense that he's writing letters. And it's clear from the endings, the case endings, when you read these in diary entries in Russian, that he's not talking about letters that he received. He's talking about letters that he's writing. Now, Whites, why would he write to a club in London? My guess is that, as we've seen in previous diary entries, the recent ones, he's been paying off his debts now that he's got this money coming in from Audrey. And White's was one of the places he liked to go to gamble when he was in London. And he had a lot of gambling debts, and all he says in this diary is White's, but my guess would be that he wrote to White's and maybe sent some money or told them he would be sending some money. He doesn't mention that specifically. Okay, he has lunch again in Davos and returns at 3 o'clock. So that is rather naughty on his part, because the rules of the house were that you were either lying down on your balcony or lying down inside from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. That was supposed to be strict bed rest. And so here he is. He does go to bed, but he's an hour late. But, you know, nobody was going to to take him to task for that, I think. Not if it was just once in a while. Okay, the blank word was where he says still blank, the book sent to me from America by Maria. I think it is still expecting the book sent to me from America by Maria. He would talk about some of those books later. There's one of them that I actually bought and gave a copy to the hotel to Shots Out because I thought it'd be cool if they had a copy of one of the books that I know Dmitri read while he was here. And now I can't remember the name of it. It was written by a Dutch Canadian journalist, and it was just a massive bestseller in 1938 or 1939. And Dmitri started reading it. I don't know if you ever finished reading it. I started reading it. I thought it was offensive. I can't even remember why. Some of the attitudes this guy had. Anyway, never mind. Let us move on. Maria, of course, was in New York at that time. The nurse forgets to weigh Dmitri. I guess he wasn't able to weigh himself. And I have probably lost weight, he says, due to the poisoning of last week. So what is the poisoning? I don't know. I don't have those diary entries. Well, yeah, we did those diary entries. It doesn't talk about poisoning. The most likely thing to me would be that that if they were still giving him creosote and calcium injections and tuberculin, then that could have an effect like poisoning. So if that could be literally the case and they decided to stop those treatments, or it could be that he just was using poisoning in a figurative sense, which actually he does do elsewhere in the diary, so that's quite possible, meaning that he's bringing up lots of nasty stuff or whatever. Okay, let's do one more. 14th February 1940, Tuesday, weighed in the morning and gained 77.000 plus 900. So he gained 900 from the last time. It's become frightfully cold again, 26 degrees since morning. 32 degrees of frost on the mountain. Naturally, it was impossible to lie on the balcony. Received a letter from Polly. Spent the afternoon in bed and didn't get up until dinner. My God, how monotonous. If only I could get better permanently. So why did he spend the whole afternoon in bed then and didn't get up until dinner time? That was going even beyond what the rules required. So maybe just not feeling well. Maybe overdid it the day before. My God, how monotonous, he says. Yeah, I suppose it would be. Lying in bed, not able to be out on the balcony because it's too cold. If only I could get better permanently. Okay, so he's had his ups and downs. He feels quite good sometimes, and then he starts feeling sick again. So yes, the permanent cure was what he wanted. Okay, we have time for one more. The 15th of February, 1940, Wednesday, letters to Gypsy Lawrence and Rose Fisk. Frightfully cold. The temperature is still under 30 degrees. In the evening, I again had some stuff come up from my throat, but much less and hardly any vomiting. He follows that with the sign of the cross. Finally, received a long letter from Audrey about Polly and his new school. Okay, short diary entry, but some people to talk about, beginning with Gypsy Lawrence. Interesting name, isn't it? And I have not been able to find much about her. I found one group photograph online where you can barely see her. She was the daughter of Sir Walter Lawrence, who was, a cricketer and a wealthy man, and who established his own Sir Walter Lawrence cricket trophy. I don't know if it still exists, or if any of you are big into cricket, maybe let me know. Rose Fisk, her surname is Fiske. So she's an interesting person. So her first marriage was to the Earl of Warwick, the seventh Earl of Warwick, Charles Greville. And so she was the Countess of Warwick for a while, and they ended up getting divorced in 1936. And my note says that he then went on to pursue an acting career in Hollywood. Huh, interesting. An acting earl, but anyway, that's nothing to do with Dmitri. So Rose then married for the second time in 1938 to William M.L. Fisk III, called Billy, a scion of a New York banking family, but with a Cambridge education. Like Dmitri, an Olympian, a two-time Olympic bobsled champion. So unlike Dmitri, he was a champion. He won in 1928 and 1932. The Winter Olympics were in San Moritz in 1928. So I wonder if Dmitri and Audrey attended. Dmitri was mad about bobsledding, and so I would guess that's how he met the Fisks, maybe. Well, maybe not. Well, I don't know, because it says here in my notes that the first gold medal he won, he was 16 years old. So in 1928, I guess he would have been 16. And he then went on and built the first ski lodge in Aspen, Colorado. He became an RAF pilot during the war. Volunteered and was shot down during the Battle of Britain on the 17th of August 1940. So the clock was ticking for him as well. And Rose made it to the age of 1972. So I know a lot more about Billy because there's so much more about him online than about Rose. But it was Rose that Dmitri was writing to. Okay, this about vomiting. This was something that we don't strongly associate with pulmonary tuberculosis, but it was a feature. So one of the best books you can read on life in a sanatorium, if you have a chance, from the late 1920s is The Plague in Eye by Betty McDonald. And she talks about how difficult it was to eat, among other tuberculosis patients. She was in a public sanatorium, so she shared a room with between 1 and 3 other patients, and she said they would wolf down their food and then they would vomit. And it would happen over and over again, and it was hard to eat when the people around you were vomiting. Well, yeah, apparently Dmitri had that problem too, but he says now hardly any, and he puts the sign of the cross. Finally, we wrap up with him receiving a long letter from Audrey about Paulie and his new school. I know that Paul went to a school in New York, not in New York City, and it had some kind of sports specialty. I mean, it was an academic school, but the character building, and it was owned and run by some famous athlete, and sports was one of the building blocks that it offered to the education of boys. And Paul loved it. He told me that himself. He really loved it. And so I'm sure Dmitri was glad about that. Anyway, we got through 4. Wow. What do we have next time? Well, more interesting people. And more on Finland. So I hope you'll come back for that. Bye.